I've had folks that have just been like, crying at closing because they're so happy to have this burden off their back. Or just some of the most heartfelt letters and texts and, thank you for coming into our world and taking care of this and all of that.
Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter, and I'll be your host. Each episode will bring you interviews with real estate insiders from all over the country and from all levels of experience. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you listen to your podcast. You can find us on everything from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, we're there. Also, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel and click the bell for notifications for every time a new episode is dropped. In this episode, we bring you part 2 of our conversation with Virginia-based agent Bob Thompson. In part 1, Bob talked all about his no-nonsense approach to real estate. And today we hear about how he has used the same style to carve out a great deal of business in the short sale and foreclosure niche. Bob shares his thoughts on what the next 6 months to a year look like for the niche and tips for agents looking to break into that side of the industry. So let's go ahead and check it out. Earlier you said that foreclosure and short sale is something that you do quite a bit of.
Yes.
I think your style definitely fits that also. It's definitely, this is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers don't lie. And I think especially for short sales, I've been doing short sales since 2008. I got into them very early, probably more out of necessity. They didn't scare me. They needed to be done. I figured, okay, well, I'm not going to eat in February, but I got to eat in November. So if it takes 6, 7, 8 months to do, I built up a book of business with investors and stuff that a lot of times I can pop in both sides of the deal because I'll get my investor to write the offer. It's quick and painless, and we move a lot faster that way. And folks need somebody to come in and solve the problem. That's what you do with selling real estate. They need somebody to come in and answer the questions and not tentatively go, well, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want to do? You need somebody to alpha up in there and go, this is what we're going to do. This is what my track record tells me. Not that I'm the greatest, but this is what my years of experience says. If we do X, Y, and Z, this will happen. And boom, this is what we're going to do. We're done. Let's do it. We're going to sign the dotted line. Let's wrap it up and keep on trucking.
Right. So when it comes to the short sale and foreclosure thing, what do you think's the next year, as
Good Lord.
In Florida,
the powers that be, and I'm part of like the 5-Star Force and some of the other organizations. So I don't claim to be Mr. Know-it-all, but I've talked to enough smart people that have their finger on the pulse of that industry, and the wall is coming. If anything, I'm pushing short sales. I think it's a great time being relative. I think it's a great time to do a short sale as opposed to getting booted out of your home in January. You can stay in your home till January, probably get a bigger relocation fee than you would if you try to do a cash for keys in January, because when the wall come, and banks are paying attention to short sales right now, they're willing to work them because they have time. And let's be honest, it's the only thing they can get off their books right now. You're going to see a massive wave of foreclosures and short sales coming. I've already been upping my information about it. I'm letting my folks know, both on both Facebook, both regular Facebook and business. I have a Mr. Short Sale website for the state of Virginia, and I'm licensed in North Carolina, and I'm starting to already trying to push that so folks will understand there's a way to go about things other than just waiting for the other hammer to drop, and it's going to come. That's what I'm telling all of my sellers right now. Don't wait 6 months to sell, because right now you have no competition. If you're an older gentleman that's trying to move to a retirement community, if you've got extra real estate, or you inherited grandma's home or whatever, don't wait 6 months to sell it, because in 6 months you're going to have a ton of competition across all price points, and your house is no longer going to be nearly as valuable as it is right now. Sell it now for top dollar. Even if you got it might even be smarter to rent for 6 months to a year and wait for these foreclosures to come, and then you can pick up something that needs a little bit of tidying and updating, and you'll actually make more money even if you end up in a rental for a year. Granted, you can't find a rental property either, right? But it's coming. The wave is. They have made it very clear. I've got my resume updated on LinkedIn. I'm trying to make sure and I am not a paperwork guy, but even I am diligently trying to make sure that my E&O is where it needs to be with all these little companies, and my resumes are filled out on all across the board on all of these little companies, even though we all know it's a pain in the butt. But I'm making sure, that's the other thing that I did while we were having that down period. I got my diversity training. I got a couple of different little, what I would call, quote unquote, little real estate diplomas, little baubles and trinkets that whether anybody likes it or not, the banks like. And I had like a month there where that's really all I could do was just, okay, put my head down, got my North Carolina license, and just, got ready.
Yeah. For agents that are seeing this and see that, okay, this wave is coming, but maybe haven't ever done the short sale or foreclosure, what's some advice that you would give to them to prepare if they want to get involved in that?
I don't think it's as complicated as people think it is. I think you basically have to put a resume together of what you're good at and then interpret it into real estate. So if you've been in the industry, let's say 2 years, but prior to that, you're ex-military. Okay, well then obviously you know how to get things done. You're probably a leader in some regards. So and companies kind of look at that and like that type of stuff. So even if it's when you're putting a resume together, use some of that in your resume. If you were managing a power plant, or hell, even if you ran a Food Lion and had 20 employees underneath you, you have management experience. The best thing I can equate it to is I've done some local acting around here, and I'm talking just like discovery, investigation, one-bit stuff, okay? Mm-hmm. The point being is that when I started doing it, the lady that I was working through was like, well, put a resume together. I'm like, well, I've never acted before. She's like, okay, well, put down the skills that you have. Okay, you're a real estate agent. You were a chemist for 9 years, so you've got a background in that. You're ex-military, so you've got some, you know how to shoot a weapon, blah, blah, blah. You sang in a band, all sorts of, extra garbage that at the end of the day doesn't mean a whole lot, but might look good on paper. And a resume is a resume. Whether it's the right one or not is immaterial. You're at least out there trying to let these folks know, and then get your little diplomas and stuff, whether it's, sometimes we get these diplomas simply for the diploma. Whether they're worth a whole lot is immaterial, but they look good on paper. Whether it's the diversity diploma or it's joining the 5-star force, that's the cost of doing business. And at least be as qualified as you can, even if when they point blank ask you, have you sold any foreclosures or short sales? No. But I clearly have put in the paperwork effort to get it done. That's what I would do. That's what I've got new agents right now that'll hit me up for information. And that's what I tell them. Just do the best you can with it. There's no magical way to make it work.
Right. I think a lot of times, when it comes to that extra, the training or the diplomas and stuff, it might not necessarily, the value in it is that it's on a piece of paper and then it's another line on that resume.
Yeah.
And that's the way
I compare it to, I went to the RE/MAX convention in January 2009 and had a long meeting with the guy that created the CDPE designation, certified distress. To certified distress, I can't remember what it is now because it's not even used anymore. But he was smart enough to take my words and other people's words and put it together in a designation and get paid, $500 a pop for this designation that I had to pay for. And I'm the one that spent 4 hours talking to the dude and half the stuff in there. I'm like, I know all of this, but you know what? I wasn't the one that was smart enough to write it up as a designation, get it covered by, had the Realtor group liked it. And then now he's getting a piece of all of that. So I'm paying for something that I already know how to do, but that's the cost of doing business sometimes. Nobody knows you can do it. You can be the worldwide expert on American history, but if you don't have a degree, you can't teach. So right, wrong, or otherwise, you got to have the paperwork that goes with it.
Right. And I think it's that small time investment in yourself, it's going to pay you back,
Yeah. It also shows that you can complete tasks and not, quit halfway through.
Right. And especially for the short sale and everything, there's so many little details that you have to, and that, it's not like dealing with a regular So
No, and you can jack your people up if you can't pay attention and negotiate properly and all that. There's a lot to it, but there's a heck of a lot of satisfaction with it too. I've had folks that have just been like, crying at closing because they're so happy to have this burden off their back, or just some of the most heartfelt letters and texts and, thank you for coming into our world and taking care of this and all of that, because it is a burden on them. And then to have somebody come in and go and lead them down the path and get them out of this, there's a responsibility to that, and it has to be done right because, folks, especially if you're in that situation, you've been kicked in the head enough times, you need somebody to actually walk you through and help you out,
right. And I think having that, we're not going to sugarcoat things, and we're not going to, there's no pie in the sky thing. This is the straight up, here's the nuts and bolts of it. That is so helpful in that situation. Yeah,
I don't do butterflies and rainbows. I'd rather be wrong and have it go really well, but at least worst case scenario, this is what we're going to do if we end up in worst case scenario. Now, worst case scenario rarely happens, but it does happen from time to time, and I don't want any surprises. I don't want you to be surprised. So most of the time, it's going to go well and smooth, and everybody's going to go home happy. But, bad things do happen, and we got to be able to fix them when it comes.
So I really want to thank Bob for taking the time to share his insights. Now, if you think you or someone on your team has an awesome story or tip to share with us, just like Bob, go ahead and send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for episode number 3. But remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.